Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I've got an artwork of some fish in a brook and we're going to talk about salmon. So let's dive right in. Okay, so first off I want to talk about the artwork and then we can talk about the salmon, which is our sort of topic for today. I was just gonna talk about like how they go upriver and stuff, but it turns out there's a lot of cool stuff that goes on with this salmon, so I'm actually pretty excited to talk about them. So yeah, first the artwork. I did this this piece on my mixed media toned paper. I actually did a video on this pretty recently, so you can, go check out that video if you want to hear what I thought about the paper itself. But I had this idea for doing a sort of brook with fish in it from like an overhead view, and I wanted to draw salmon, which are kind of cool fish with really bright pink colors when they're in fresh water. So I thought it would be fun to do that. I used watercolor. So I used, let's go over the materials first of all. I used the Strathmore toned mixed media paper, Windsor and Newton Cotman watercolors. I used Prismacolor and Derwent colored pencils, and my Princeton brushes and my Grumbacher brush. So yeah, those are the materials that I used. They all worked really well on this paper, pretty cohesive. My one regret with this piece was that it's very mid-tony. So I didn't go very far into the bright lights, and I didn't go very dark. I tried to darken up a lot of the pieces with the colored pencil after I'd finished with the watercolor, but even now I feel like I could have definitely pushed the darks a lot farther, and I have hardly any lights, which is kind of understandable because with watercolor, especially if you're adding lights, those lights are usually the white of the paper, but because in this case the paper isn't white, I don't have that lightness to play with, which was challenging, and I wish I'd done more with the colored pencils to get back a little bit more of the light, because I feel like I usually play it pretty safe when it comes to shadows and highlights, but I really wish I didn't, because I actually really like a lot of contrast in my artwork, but that's really easy to get in like digital artwork and photography. It's really easy to just digitally enhance the contrast of these pieces, but it's not so easy in traditional pieces, and you have to put a lot more thought into it, and so that's something I'd really like to work on, is just, focusing more on the intensity of the lights and darks. Other than that, this is a pretty straightforward piece. I did like a watercolor wash, then I just put some sort of blobby shapes for different like piles of rocks that you would be able to see through the water if you were looking, head down, overhead, at the brook. And then I had some logs that were sort of on the side that maybe were sticking out of the water or something. So I just had the general shapes of them, and then I, chiseled out some more details and made them look like, actual 3D objects rather than just blobs. So yeah, that was pretty easy. The actual fish were a little bit harder, first because they are pretty small, had to be really small and detailed to get them, so I definitely relied a lot on my Prismacolors, to get the color to really show up and to get that detail. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I also used some markers. For the fish especially, I used some grays, and it was really helpful to get a lot more detailed, but I really had trouble. Again, you can't add lighter with the markers, so I had to really go in with the colored pencils to add the lights and the pink parts. I could not get those colors with either the watercolor or the markers to show up on the tone paper, so that was where I really heavily relied on the colored pencils. So yeah, that's kind of the overall everything I did for that piece. It was really fun and, you know, kind of a fun subject matter. So let's talk about salmon. So salmon are usually found in the ocean, but they do go upstream to spawn. So they spend part of their time in fresh water. But what was really interesting to me is that they go through a lot of physical changes in this process. So they don't look the same in freshwater as they do in the ocean. And usually when you're going to eat salmon, it'll be ocean caught, because those physical changes also change like the flavor of the fish's meat, or whatever it's called. So yeah, let's talk about what those changes actually are. So one of the big changes is in the males. That's when you get the really bright pink or red color, is they go through this change when they're about to spawn. They also have a change. They get like a little hook in their mouths. It's like on their snout, a little downward pointing hook, which is interesting, and it's just supposed to like make them look aggressive, really, is what I found, which is really funny. That was the whole point of it. And then the females don't change as much, but they do have like a lot of internal changes where like their body sort of breaks down a little bit internally, and that's to make room for their eggs. And of course this is different for different types of salmon and different species, but this is how it is for a lot of them. And I will put like the links and stuff for all this information in the description if you want to check it out and see what else you can learn. Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, they go through these physical changes, and then they start heading up river, usually until they get to the spot where they were hatched. They usually return to that place, which is also really cool. So they go back, and then the females dig out a little sort of burrow. It's a nest. It's a really shallow hole in the bottom of the river, where they lay their eggs, and then the males release their sperm, and they all sort of lay them in the bottom, and then, you know, a lot of them die. So it depends on the species again, which ones die after mating. But sometimes the females manage to live a little bit longer, so they like stay and they like guard the nest as long as they can until they you know, can't survive anymore. They don't eat once they're in the river. And some species manage to make it out to the ocean again, but some of them that go through really intense physical changes, their bodies cannot, you know, take in nutrients anymore. They sort of lost a lot of their internal organs, which means they don't have the ability to eat. So yeah, some of them just, you know, after they spawn, they die. which is kind of sad, but you know, also really interesting, and it's part of their life. So I hope you enjoyed learning about these salmon. I thought it was really interesting, and I didn't really realize how much went into spawning and how much physical change they went through. So that was really cool, and I also hope you enjoyed watching me do this piece. It was pretty quick, but I really enjoyed it, and it was sort of a fun experimentation for me. So I really loved the colors, and the composition was really cool. It was kind of a cool overhead view that I really enjoyed playing with. So yeah, thank you so much, and please stick around and watch some of my other videos. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, live life respectfully. Bye.